All right. Kata, you're supposed to start this conversation, but it seems you are just waiting for me to give you a green light. So since you're waiting for me to give you a green light, please start. Let us go.
Can you fix the mic? Hello?
Do you hear me or no?
I didn't even hear you because your mic is it's not working, so I didn't even hear you.
You need to start.
Okay, I'll go ahead. Hi, my name is Catherine Bate. I'm a senior volunteer coordinator of African Alumni Association, and I'll be reciting the land acknowledgement. We wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto African Alumni Association operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of Huron-Wendat and the Seneca, and most recently the Mississaugas or the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. Thank you so much. Back to you, Henry.
Hello. Thank you so much, Catherine. All right. Thank you so much, everyone who is following us on Facebook, on YouTube. This is the African Alumni Mental Health Series, as we continue to examine some of the events that happen into our lives. But before we start, there's an important message that I want to pass on to the leaders in Uganda, especially the security officers, the police, the army, and all other security apparatus that are working to diminish democracy in our country. We are watching everything that you are doing, and we know that whatever is going on is not in the best interest of democracy. We want to send a strong message to the leaders in Uganda, to the president, and all the people that work to sustain you in power, that Uganda belongs to everyone, every Ugandan. Uganda belongs to every Ugandan, not just a few elites. And therefore, we urge you to stop killing our relatives, our friends, and our kins. This is not a political discussion to let the leaders in Uganda understand that in a democratic process, every voice counts. And we are not going to just keep quiet and let you continue to disorient people because of the way you are handling the democratic process. With that being said, we have two panelists, Dokas Nakachwa and Ahmed Luja. One is an engineer, the other one is a data scientist. The conversation we are having today is about how people navigate their online world. So navigating the virtual world during a COVID pandemic. the question is, what is at stake? And we know that during the COVID-19 pandemic, there are so many things that have been disrupted, things that we need to think about, in which context we think about these things. Our social life has been disrupted, our cultural life, our economic and political interactions, they have all been disrupted. For over 8 months now, most people are confined in their living rooms, isolated from the world of physical interactions. Now, this is a new norm that has birthed new habits of online engagement, from shopping to partying to other interactions. From TikTok, Snapchat, or Instagram to WhatsApp, WeChat, or Facebook. An average youth or adult has at least 3 social media applications. But that's not all. We also engage online in so many different ways, including signing up for different things. This active engagement comes with a price. What is that price? This is what we are going to be discussing today. What do you have to give away in order to interact with the different websites, the different applications, and other things that happen as you interact with the online world? I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves, starting with Engineer Dorcas Nakashwa. Please proceed. We don't hear you. We don't hear you. We don't hear you. Do you hear me?
I'd actually muted myself. I think you can hear me now. Okay. Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you so much for passing on a very important message. I know it's not related to politics, but it's very important to relay such information. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me for the third time, I think, on African mental health. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Dorcas Nakacha, and I'm studying a Master of Engineering in Aerospace Engineering at McGill. I'm also leading Inogen, which is an organization that is promising to support and inspire girls in rural Uganda to take up STEM courses and careers later on in their lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ahmed Luja, are you ready? I would like to know who you are. And I'm going to ask if you're putting on both your computer and your mobile phone to decrease the voice for one of either one, so that people can hear you well. Because if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, your voice, there's an echo that is coming in. We want to minimize that. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you, Henry, for this opportunity. It's my first time on the African Alumni platform. My name is Ahmed Luja, and I'm pursuing a master's in human-centered data science at the University of Toronto. Thank you.
Human-centered data science. Oh, you are the guys we want to hear from. Human-centered data science. What does that even mean? But before we proceed, before we go ahead, I want to ask each and every one of you, how are you doing mentally? How is your health? How is your well-being? I know these are hard times. I know you're both international students, and you're interacting with the Canadian lifestyle in a different way, basically because of the COVID-19 circumstance or pandemic. We are almost in the second wave. We have had some kind of hope from government officials telling us that, the medication has finally come in. Pfizer has talked about a medication, promising medication. They're telling us that it is 90% perfect. We don't know what's going on. But in the meantime, we continue to interact with the internet, with our lifestyles. But first, how are you doing? Dorcas, how are you doing?
Okay, thank you for giving me that start. So I'm doing fine. I'm doing as we speak right now. I was just talking to you that I'm kind of disoriented because of what's happening in Uganda, but when it comes to academics, I'm fine. We've been in this thing for so long, for 8 months now, and thankfully I've been able to come up with strategies to maneuver through. I've been very consistent with exercising and doing yoga and meditating every morning. I realized that when I wake up very early in the morning, it works for me, so I've been consistent with that. And then I've also been taking walks and keeping in touch with family and friends and using social media. And like we're going to discuss today, it's very important to protect ourselves because this is the only way that we are allowed to actually communicate with our loved ones. So it's very important that we do it in a safe and secure way.
Safe and secure way. Safe and secure way. Ahmed, how are you doing?
Thank you, Henry, for the opportunity. So you mentioned about the current institutions that are releasing out the vaccines that are hopefully going to be used to curb the widespread of the virus that we are facing at the moment. Personally, it's one of the things that gives me anxiety. Recently, due to the issues that there wasn't any solution to the virus, but currently the nervousness comes from the point that both these institutes that are releasing vaccines at the moment are on a competition. Because at first, Pfizer said their vaccine is 90% accurate, but then today morning they said it's now 95%.
I know.
Which is,
Moderna, because after Moderna said it's 90, theirs is 94%.
Theirs was 94.5.
Yeah, 94.5. So Pfizer comes out this morning and they increased a 0.5 percentage point, which is very
so that increases the nervousness and it puts me in a situation of disbelief of whether the vaccine will really solve whatever is going on or not. Besides that, when it comes to education and school, just like Dorcas, I'm also strong on exercising. I do take runs, I take walks, and when it comes to information back home, I have friends and relatives that I do check on regularly to see what's going on. And yeah, it really helps to keep me in a sane situation.
All right. That's good. Good to know that at least you're keeping safe. At least you have adopted a few strategies to stay safe, but also to stay sane. So you're taking care of your well-being. I think that's very important. Besides the politics that is happening, both in the US, which were just visitors and just watching and just enjoying the theater, the political theater that is happening there. But when you look at when you turn the camera and focus on Uganda, what is happening there also is distressing, and I hope those issues get resolved as soon as possible. I hope each and every candidate is given an equal opportunity to speak to their constituencies as they make a case to Ugandans of who should be the next leader, should be the next president. So let us talk about the conversation today. We have talked a lot about how to protect personal data online, how to live safely online. The very first question is, what is personal data? Luja, you're the data scientist.
So I'll go first. Personally, I believe personal data can be defined as any information that relates to an identifiable living individual. This can be a name, an address, your identification number. It could be a surname or last name. So yeah, anything that, these could be pieces of information or one information as a whole that can identify you as an individual, but it excludes any information that is part of an organization. Let's say it's a company email, then that's not personal information, because any time you resign or you leave that organization, you'll have to hand it over. And at any point, if they feel like they're not so sure of what you're doing within the organization, they can access it and get to see whatever you're doing. So,
right.
I believe people need to know the difference between, okay, like how these two can be differentiated. If it's part of an institution, then it's not personal. They can access it anytime they want. But then if it's yours personal, let's say an email or a Gmail account, it's yours due to the terms and contracts you sign with any organization you hold your email with. Yeah.
Dorcas, what's your perspective?
Right from the scholar's mouth, he said it perfectly. I think personal information or personal data is anything that relates to you, whether it's financial data, your accounts and banking information, all that is personal information, whether it's what you're posting on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, like TikTok, anything that relates to you is personal information, like Ahmed had said.
Right. So in most cases, when we are opening up either signing up for new applications or engaging with different websites, some people, when they're signing up for those things, you said that there's a difference between a personal email and an organizational email. When we sign up for whatever we sign up online, if we are using organizational emails, what happens to those platforms when we change jobs? Do we lose those platforms, or because we have lost the email, or just lose access to them? And what if we want to regain access? What happens? What do we do?
I'll take it on from there. So I believe it depends on the institution or organization. If it's a school, let's say University of Toronto, once you sign up and become a student and you're given an email, it's yours partially, but it's an institutional email. They can still access it if they feel like you've been doing something malicious behind the institution. They can access it. It's different from the Gmail that you own. So you can still access this email even when you're no longer a student.
Right.
But it's different from an organization. Let's say if you work for Bank of Uganda, once you resign, you no longer have access to that email. So it's no longer yours or any platforms you've been using within that institution.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to the basics of the platforms, let's say WhatsApp, Skype, Slack, Zoom, you no longer access any of them, but you can still access a WhatsApp group that you were using as a class when you were still in school.
Right.
So,
what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts, Dorcas?
I actually think that it depends on the organization. I can give a direct example. I had the opportunity to work with Bombardier at the beginning of the year. I had an email, a Bombardier email that I was using to talk to clients, to talk to other team members, and generally other people within the organization. Once I left, I no longer have access to that email. I don't know what's happening, but when I left, for example, when I left my alma mater, Ashes in Ghana, I still have access to my school email, although I don't have full administrative rights to the email. So for example, if I need to change my password for that email right now, I don't have those rights. I have to contact the support team at Ashesi to actually give me access again to my email. So there are so many variations, and it depends on the organization or the company. But when it comes to personal information, for example, if I need to change a password for my Gmail, I have all the rights and all the administrative capacity to actually do that. So I would say most times when it comes to like corporate organizations, workplaces and stuff, unless you're not a tenured employee, you really don't have full rights or you don't have permanent access to that email. But for schools and certain other organizations, you might have access after. For your personal email or your personal information, you have full administrative rights.
All right. So a question comes in then, because in most cases we visit websites, especially right now. We navigate the internet differently, but sometimes you are sent a link, and as you are engaging within that website, there's a note that usually comes that pops up, and it says that we use cookies. When websites say that they use cookies and that they help, they need you to click on that to accept. They give you options. You need to either say yes or no. And the reason why they say that, they usually tend to give us a rationale that we want to make your experience with this website enjoyable. We want you to enjoy your smooth browsing of this website. So when you say yes, apparently you get a better experience. When you say no, you may continue engaging with the website, but apparently the experience is not as good. So to the data scientist, we need to learn from you, what are cookies? And what does it mean when you click either option, either yes, I accept, or no? When you click no, does that mean they don't take your information? When you click I accept, do they have access to your information? Things like email, can they follow up on, can they access, for example, your email? Can they get to know who this guy is? Can they monitor you? For example, can GPS know that this is someone who is here or there? And how do they use that information?
So yeah, cookies are more like ways web servers do track your like your activity online. So let's say, for example, if you visit a website like Amazon, if you don't if you don't accept, some organizations do make it in a trickier way, in that if you fail to accept cookies tracking your web activity, then they 95% deny you access to the website. You can only see a certain portion of the website, but then if you accept, then you'll be able to see anything within the website.
Right.
And the reason as to why they do pass on cookies to users to accept or not accept is that this activity that you're trying to like the activity that you're trying to feed into the cookie helps them helps you categorize you as a customer of yours. Let's say if it's Amazon,
yeah,
the cookie will track which items you're going to click on, which pages you're going to visit, how long are you going to stay on a certain page, how do you navigate between pages. So it tracks all this data and then sends them to their web servers. So later they do have a team of expertise, data scientists, and machine learning engineers that do look through this data and try to see what are the more likely items you would want to buy in future or the following day. So before you know it, they begin sending these as adverts into your inbox. Let's say if you signed up for email notifications, these are the things you're going to be seeing. So when they talk of improving your interactiveness with the website, that's what they mean. But then it's harmful in a way that sometimes my web activity doesn't portray what my interests are.
Right.
For example, I might want to search for an iPhone, but then I go through iPhone cases first. I don't want to buy iPhone cases, but I want to buy an iPhone only. So just because you saw me going through an iPhone case first, doesn't mean you're supposed to be recommending me iPhone cases, because I don't need any of that. You get.
Right.
So yeah, it improves your experience with your website, but then it's harmful in a way that it's going to get you addicted to things you're not willing to spend most of your time on. So yeah, going back to your question, it's advisable to be cautious of which websites are you visiting and why are you accepting such cookies. Because whether you accept it or not, when you look at the advancements in technology at the moment, we are really very much targeted by these organizations. At any single moment, they have access to your data, whether you want it or not. Because sometimes if you fail to accept a cookie, they do send in a third-party website.
Right.
Third-party institutions, there are mobile apps. They usually use, you might sign up with their website, and then it says no cookies for access to this website and stuff. But then when you look at the back end of their website, they're usually third-party organizations collecting data, which you won't even know about. So I think it's more of looking into which websites are you visiting and is it necessary for you to accept that cookie or not. That's it.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Dorcas?
Honestly, I may just explained everything. The other thing that I would add on is these people are they're in for money, you know. So all these cookies are really set up in a way that allows them to make money, you know. At the end of the day, like he said, they'll be sending you adverts, they'll be sending you emails, and at the end of the day, they're doing this because they want to milk money out of you, in as much as, or they're making it seem as though they're improving your web browsing experience. When you look at it, they are, but at the end of the day, it's really benefiting them because they are the ones that are encouraging you to buy things in the first place that you did not even intend to buy. So yeah, I would say that people should try to prioritize what kind of websites they want to visit, and people should also have personal constraint. I've just been very vigilant on data things, and after watching some documentary around data and everything, I think we should have some personal constraints when it comes to using all these things.
It's interesting that you're talking about personal constraint. I want to ask if you have encountered any challenges navigating the virtual world, especially during this isolation time. Are there any challenges that you have encountered?
Yeah, I have. For me, the biggest challenge as of now has been because at the end of the day, you know, whether we accept cookies or we don't, at the end of the day, you're spending time in the online, so they are still going to find ways of collecting information from you. So for me, the goal for me has, how do I reduce on that time I spend on the screen? How especially for social media apps, Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, how do I kill down on my social media time? And you know, we have smartphones. We are very privileged that we're living in a smartphone era. Your phone has limits. I know that people sometimes call me and the limit is already up, so it would cut the call. That's because I've set a specific amount of time I'm spending on my phone, whether it's for social media, and I've really just categorized it into so many different ways. And for me, that is really helping me cut down on my screen time. It's helping me be more productive when it comes to school. It's allowing me to spend more time with myself. There's a concept that I've been navigating around called self-love and self-care. It allows me to read more books. I've just become a book nerd. So yeah, the challenge for me, the biggest one has been, how do I cut down on my time online? that has been the biggest challenge, especially because I know that the more time you spend on social media, if you're not careful, it has an impact on your mental health.
Right.
So how do I love myself more? How do I care for myself more without having to rely on social media?
And that's very important. It's good that you're talking about mental health now, because this conversation also wants to incorporate some of the challenges that one might encounter, specifically well-being challenges, by spending so much time online. So if you're the kind of person who has each and every application out there in the world, you are on Slack, you're on Zoom, you're on TikTok, you're on WhatsApp, you're on Facebook, you're on WeChat for some of us who study with a lot of Asian colleagues or students from China. How do you manage your time, online time? And when do you know that you're doing too much social media?
Would Ahmed go for that?
Yeah, let me start with Ahmed, and then we can see what you think later on.
Yeah, so maybe to first, like, I'll first thank Dorcas for the point she raised of for putting much emphasis on your mental health and general well-being. I personally had an experience during summer where, so if you look at the business model of Facebook, it's not entirely their business model, but then part of their business model, which is largely what they depend on to make money, focuses on recommending friends, recommending events. So if you look at most of the people that come from Uganda at the moment, you'll find that the information that flows through your feed at the moment is one of people striking, you see women being killed, these ones being rushed into by cars. So that's what they like to recommend to you, because it makes you sad.
Right.
And when it makes you sad, we human beings are known of wanting to quench our like we
Emotion.
personally, when I feel sad, I usually want to buy things to keep myself happy. So is it really good for my wallet to be buying things every time I feel sad? So they do recommend saddening events to you, and below the saddening events, they usually put up links to websites that you usually visit on other websites, because this is the data they do buy from these other third-party institutions. So when I noticed this, like, I noticed a difference between my activity when I'm using Instagram and Facebook. Well, these are apps that are from the same organization, but their experience is different. What Instagram gives you is different from what Facebook will give. Facebook is more of a saddening platform, but then Instagram will show you the shiny life of people who are definitely sad in normal life. So I came to a conclusion that, oh, I don't really need Facebook anymore, because at some point I ended up following someone, or I ended up following a group of people that were malicious to my life. They hacked into my account, they began threatening me, so I ended up deleting the entire platform and focused on only one platform of theirs, which is Instagram. But I also noticed that I was still wasting a lot of time with Twitter, YouTube. So I came to a conclusion that I'm going to delete some of these apps off my phone, because it's a mobile phone. I hold it most of the time in my hands. So if I delete them off my phone, then I won't be logging in into them at any point.
Right.
I only access my Twitter when I'm on my laptop, which I don't use 24/7. So I personally do delete apps that I'm not using entirely, and then the ones that I do get to use more frequently, I make sure that I set limits to when and how I should be using them.
That's an interesting perspective. The notion that I delete apps because I don't feel that they are constructive in my life anymore, so I choose to delete them. I want to ask a very simple question. Do you think that deleting apps helps in ensuring that your information is not taken by those companies that you have deleted? For example, if you delete Facebook, where does your personal information go? Where does your email go? Where do your pictures go? Where do all your videos and like everything that you would say that was mine, but now I'm deleting, I'm quitting this platform. Where do those things go, Dorcas?
For now, I know that Ahmed would, because he's a data scientist here, he will build more on that. But I also know that Facebook has really gotten into so many problems when it came to, data management and all that. So for me, I would assume that that data would still, so Facebook would still retain the information in as much as you don't have access to that information, whether it's on their server or it's on their database. I'm not exactly sure if they 100% erase, like once you erase your account, I don't know if it automatically erases all the information from their database. So I'll just let Ahmed clarify that. Do they really, when I delete, so for example, you deleted your Facebook account. Are you 100% sure that Facebook also erased all your information from their servers and their database?
That's a good question, yes.
So I have experience. So when you're deleting your Facebook account, they usually give you an option of keeping a copy of your data. So they ask you, would you want to keep a copy of your data? If you say yes, then they send you a batch of it either to your email or anywhere you wish. The reason as to why they do this, it's because they are still keeping a copy of it. So at any point, if let's say you end up coming across your images in any newspaper, yet you thought you deleted Facebook, they want you to make sure that you cross-check with the data that you archived somewhere and see if they are really the ones that are doing that, or it's someone who got access to a copy that you kept on your own. So when you delete your account, first of all, they give you an option of keeping a copy of it. I personally didn't, I was so fed up, I didn't accept that. I didn't want anything anymore. So I didn't keep anything. And due to the wideness of the servers they do have and how much capabilities they have, they do keep your data for some number of years. It's the same way you see your credit history being kept. If you, for example, if you sign up for a credit card here in Canada, there's somewhere where all this data is kept. So if you begin defaulting your loans, if you fail to pay your debts, all this information is displayed somewhere. It's public, it's not personal. So,
right.
So if you delete, if you feel like you're no longer wanting to use this credit card and you delete it, it will be deleted, but then its information will still be visible for 6 years. So Facebook also does the same thing. They keep this data for some time, but then later they do delete it. For example, when I deleted my account, people would still see it when they search it. Like it was entirely off, but then when you go into your Google search and search for my Facebook account, you will still see it. But when you try to access it, it says the link is broken, which means they do have servers that keep track of how do you access your account, when do you access it. So all this stays active for a month. But then the real personal data that you had, the images, the friends, the chats, those stay in for a very longer time because they also do learn from people who delete their account. Like what forced them to do this? So they keep studying it to know how.
Yeah, I was going to ask if they use this for just studying, or do they? Can we suspect that some of this data is sold to other to third-party organizations?
Facebook ran into that problem.
It does get sold. So when you're signing up for a Facebook account, no one saw anything mentioned about Cambridge Analytica anywhere within the contracts that you're signing and stuff. But then, just out of the blue, you see an organization called Cambridge Analytica buying data from Facebook and then using it to influence voters within the US. So they do sell the data, but then when you look at their terms and contracts, they usually have a way of justifying it. So personally, if I'm to advise my younger self before deleting the account, is I will delete it as early as possible, because the more you use it, like, I'm not trying to influence people into deleting theirs because it's an exciting platform to use, but then the more you use it, the more data they get from you. The more you grow, the more you keep interacting with the app, the more data they get from you, and the more chances they get to influence your decision.
Right.
Mm.
my political decisions or my social decisions or
Yeah.
whatever I interact with.
Yeah.
So they get to know this guy went to this school in this year. He started this during his undergrad. He studied this during his graduate school. And this is how he thinks about issues. Therefore, he's most likely to buy this book. And then
Yeah.
they direct me to the
Yeah.
and that's how they make their money. I would like to believe. But beyond those marketing stunts that these big organizations have on us, on influencing our decisions at some point, how should people interact with these platforms? Keep in mind that the data they share, while is theirs, could potentially become the big organization's data, because they use it for research and to make more predictions about people's lives and perhaps the future. Dorcas.
Yeah, so for me, honestly, I would say that people tread this path with caution. This is something that I do before I post anything on any social media platform. Do I really need to post this on social media? Would it, if 5 years down the road someone showed me this thing, would I cringe? Can it be used against me at some point in time? These are some of the questions that I ask myself before I actually post anything on social media. So I think people should also tread the same path with a lot of caution. And I also find that we are in a very digital age where you're cool if you're more social on social media and you're telling people how you went on this vacation. But these are some of the ways that we lay traps for ourselves. And I would also say that there are some things that people should know as you're interacting online. Don't use public Wi-Fi. I know it's exciting to use free Wi-Fi. Don't. I know of a person who was robbed of all their money because they had a mobile banking app and they logged into some public Wi-Fi and they literally stole all her money. So it happens both in North America and in Uganda. Like, hackers are everywhere and scams are everywhere. So there are some cautions that people should take as they navigate the online world. But yeah, I think that, and I also think that people should also ask themselves the same questions. Do I need really to post this online? Because that, like we've explained, there's so many challenges that come with this. At the end of the day, you think it's your data, but the company that actually has access to your data is also making huge sums of money off this data. So
Right. And talking about hacking and managing people's Wi-Fi, whatever you decide to do. Ahmed, what are some of the strategies that people can use to repel the hackers or uninvited guests? So sometimes you have Instagram or Facebook. So what happens if the Facebook account you claim you deleted is being used by someone else? How do you manage that? What are some of the strategies we can use to repel some of those uninvited guests, hackers, imposters, because sometimes people actually end up using your names and pictures to solicit either money from other people or to just use someone's identity without their consent to benefit themselves. What do we do in this scenario?
Thank you, Henry. So I'll first correct you on the previous point you've been talking about, where you said the data the organizations do use is theirs, it's ours. That's why it's called personal data. And it's the reason as to why we have policies like the GDPR from the European Union. It doesn't work within the European Union only, but it also works on data that is outside of the European Union.
Right.
It's also the same reason as to why the recent project that Google had with the city of Toronto that was called the Sidewalk Labs was cancelled because Google failed to justify their reason of selling this data after doing research on it to the same people they collected it from. So Google wanted to construct a smart city within Toronto, but then it was supposed to be constructed after collecting data from the citizens that live within Toronto.
Yeah.
And their point was that after us collecting the data, building the city, we need to first share the data with you, but then sharing it, you need to pay for it. And a number of professors around institutions within Ontario weren't okay with the issue because this is our personal data. Why would you sell it to us?
Right. That is the personal data, but your personal data is may not be valuable when it's just by yourself. It becomes valuable when it is in quantity, when it becomes compiled in numbers, and then it can tell stories. This is how people in Toronto behave. These are some of the restaurants they go to. These are some of the mobile service providers that they use most. These are some of the most happening places. These are in terms of either bars or nightclubs or beaches. What is the busiest part of the beaches, for example? So I do agree that selling personal data is wrong. But I also think that when people gather, researchers gather together and compile information of an entire city or close to an entire city to examine its behavior, they produce something valuable because they make you understand a city in a completely different perspective that you otherwise wouldn't with just individual data sets.
Yeah. So to talk about the point of what are some of the strategies we will curb issues of hackers and malicious people, I believe it's important for users of these systems to log out anytime you're done using it. Let's say if you're using your laptop, make sure that you log off all websites and shut down, because if you stay logged in, let's say to Amazon, they have a recommendation system that keeps on tracking all these hours you're still active. So you're going to be frustrated with what they'll be recommending you just because you left your laptop open and running in the background and they thought, oh, he spent over 7 hours on this page. He likes these things so much.
Right.
Then it's also important to, like Dorcas said, not to connect to any Wi-Fi hotspots you're not confident about. Only connect to the ones that you're sure of. It's also important to update your softwares regularly, because by the time, let's say by the time Microsoft says we have a new update of our Windows, they've looked through all the glitches and technical issues around. So they do release a new update to make sure that they safeguard you as an individual. So it's important for users to pay close attention to these updates and then install them. And then the most important thing that a user could ever do is to make sure that you read the terms and conditions, because that's where
Reading the
everything,
terms
yeah.
and conditions. Yeah, I think that's actually very important. I have a clip from one of the former experts, or like he is an expert. He's not a former expert. He's still an expert in data management. I want to hear your responses after this.
Assuming that you're not a drug dealer and you're not, obviously being hunted by the government, and you want to protect the anonymity of your IP address, certainly Tor is the best thing for you. Tor is a common tool used by government agents. It's used by dissidents. It's used by journalists to protect the anonymity of their communications. It's called the onion router. So basically, you're entering the Tor network. It's passing it to another Tor node, to another Tor node, to eventually what they call an exit node going out to the internet. And it's designed in such a way to make it extremely difficult to track back the person that's using it. However, being myself, I trust no one. And I think about recent cases like Russ Ulbricht, the guy who was convicted of running Silk Road, the online drug emporium in the dark web, is the FBI was eventually able to catch him. So I always think, could there be a vulnerability in Tor that we don't know about? Mind you, this is not encrypting your information. It's just to be anonymous. So your IP address, which kind of ties you to your internet service provider, cannot be tracked. So when you use the web, there's different protocols. There's HTTP that basically is in the clear. There's no encryption. And then HTTPS means it's using secure sockets layer, which means it's creating a tunnel between your computer and the server you're accessing. And in that tunnel, it's passing your information, but the tunnel is encrypted. So nobody could see inside. So it protects the transport communications of your activity on the internet. If you install the HTTPS Everywhere plugin or extension, depending on what browser you use, what it does is it forces your browser to go to the SSL version of the site. Because a lot of sites out there support both the non-encrypted version and the encrypted version. This forces you to use the encrypted version so your transport is kept confidential.
What do you think about that? Should we be worried? Which website?
Yeah, I like the fact that he mentioned Tor because I've used it before.
Yeah.
It could be categorized under VPNs, virtual private networks. It's important for someone to have a virtual private network, but then it's more important to be cautious of which VPN am I using, because government institutions are so smart. Like, they have very smart individuals that do create their own VPNs, make them free for individuals. So every time you see yourself using something for free, ask yourself, is it going to be free for a long run? You get? That's why you notice there's a difference between a free VPN and a paid VPN.
Yeah, so the reason why I showed that clip is because many Ugandans, especially right now, they use VPNs to access social media or to access internet because they don't want to pay the tax that was imposed on social media. But as the country goes into the next forthcoming election, do you think that these VPNs could be a trap from governments to see who is trying to dodge their taxes, and do you think they can use them to track people?
Yes, I believe they can. The way he mentioned it, they can easily be used to track your personal, like the way you're using the various websites. How are you communicating with the various people within the country? So they are not 100% safe. That's why the previous like the FBI agent that you showed in the video mentioned about using a website that has HTTPS on it. But then The problem with that is that in order for you to access a website with HTTPS, the website owner needs to have paid a certain amount for it to be accessed in that format. So not all, for example, in my home back, like in my country back home, not all companies, organizations can pay for that. It's quite expensive on a monthly basis. You look it out for on a yearly basis. So the question is, are we going to abandon these websites just because they can't shift to the HTTPS version? You guys.
Dorcas, what are your thoughts?
I would say that it's important that people know that the government can use this as the other channel, but then also I'm very confident that there are other ways that people can use VPNs in a very safe way. If Ugandans are willing to pay some money to access a safe VPN, I think they should use that route. But we know that during election time, especially in Uganda, people can't use social media. People can't freely express themselves about what's happening in the country. So I feel like Ugandans should prepare themselves ahead of time, whether it's to, get a safe VPN, if you can pay some money. I feel that Ugandans should really look ahead because we know that it's coming. So we should prepare. We shouldn't wait for the rain to come. We should buy the umbrellas before it actually starts raining.
Buying the umbrellas. Okay. We are talking about using money to get a safer VPN. But you also have to remember that the reason why people use VPN is because they don't want to pay the 200. So how do you measure who to pay? Where to spend your money? How do we evaluate where to spend our money? For those people who don't want to pay that tax, the internet tax. That's one of the questions that we need to evaluate more as we continue having these conversations. Of course, these conversations cannot end. We shall always continue to have more of these conversations. I want to hear from you. How do we wrap up this conversation? What are your thoughts? Well, what should someone who just came in now, what should they learn? What's the one thing that they should go away with from this conversation?
Okay, so I think for the person who is joining now, we were talking about how to protect your personal information during this COVID-19 era, and Ahmed and Sally, the coordinator, were able to trigger so many questions and so many answers were laid down. Some of the ways, the most definite way is to do personal research when it comes to protecting your data, your personal information or personal data, exercise personal constraints when it comes to using the online platforms. Then there are several ways that Ahmed had explained, like making sure that the Wi-Fi that you're signing into is trusted, logging out of all devices. Using VPNs could also be a safe way to maneuver around using the online platforms. But then the other thing is have great passwords, have strong passwords. Then do not use autocomplete or autofill. I know that some passwords would ask you, oh, should we remember the website, the password for this website? I think people should restrain from that, because that means any person who logs into your device actually has access to your account. Then yeah, like I mentioned, for me, the biggest thing is to do personal research and personal constraint. Ask yourself if what you're posting is uplifting. If someone used it against you 5 years down the road, would you be fine with that? So for me, those are my final remarks. And
yeah. All right, Ahmed, any final remarks?
Yeah, so I believe Dorcas has wrapped up everything that we've really talked about in this session. maybe what I can add on is that, like, I would caution whoever looks at themselves as someone who uses online platforms, who really value their personal data, to at least consider three things: checking their privacy settings all the times, because if you look at the way these software updates are sent in, they usually send in an update that changes your privacy settings. So if you try to take a look at your privacy settings on a monthly basis or time after time, then that will help you be on a safer side. Then it's also important to read the terms and conditions. I know they make them bulky and long for a purpose. They know people are not so good at reading dry content. So just take your time, at least skim through and get to know how is everything going to be going down along the road. And lastly, I believe it's also important to never reuse passwords,
Right.
because some people use a single password for all the platforms they have. So that's a very risky thing to do. If I can easily hack into your Facebook and know which password you use, then the next time I land onto your RBC account, then it's the same password I'll put in, and there are 99% chances that it will work. So
I know.
yeah.
I know. So that happens a lot. For people who are always using the same passwords, it's not a good idea. And we're going to wrap up this conversation. We always have these conversations. Of course, we had to insert in the conversation about mental health, staying so much hours online, how that affects your mental health, having so many different social media platforms. How does that affect your well-being? There are some strategies that have been shared. In the case of data scientist Luja Ahmed, he has deleted some of his media platforms because he wants to regain his autonomy. And the engineer Douglas Nagacha also has decided to engage more in reading. So he reads more than just engaging into social media websites. There are some other strategies. Check your privacy settings more often, at least once a month. I know it's a lot of work, but it is your personal data, and your personal data is valuable, is as valuable as you are. So protect it. It's your duty to protect your personal data. And I hope as we go forward, you live healthy and safely online. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, my name is Henry Sully for the African Alumni Association, and this is our African Mental Health series. We have another one coming up next Wednesday, so stay tuned. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. There are so many. I know we are trying to ask you to manage your personal data or personal information online, but we are also encouraging you to follow us on all these different social media platforms. So again, we have presence all over social media: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. So follow us, hear more about what we have to say. If you do have any suggestion on how you want us to proceed or to shape these conversations, please send us an email at africanalumni@gmail.com, and stay safe. We love you. My name is Henry Sully for the African Alumni Association.
Hello everyone, I'm Sonia Sidhu, your Federal Member of Parliament from Brampton South. I would like to extend my best wishes to the University of Toronto's African Alumni Association Mental Health Series. I applaud you for finding creative ways to connect with one another as we get used to our new norm and fight COVID-19. For many, the pandemic is having a major impact on their everyday lives, affecting mental and physical well-being. We also know that racialized Canadians have been hit harder with the virus entirely. In Brampton, we are blessed by our diversity, as it creates stronger and more vibrant communities. I have the pleasure of speaking to and working with community organizations and groups such as yourself, and I see the difference that can be made.